Well, good evening, everyone. We're delighted here with the speaker series to have United Airlines talk to you all about the Aviate program. UND and United have had a long-term partnership over many decades. It started out with an internship that's been continuously successful for our students. And then it more recently moved into the pilot career pathway program called Aviate. And tonight I'll introduce the lead United person, Susan White. She's the Senior Manager of Pilot Hiring at United Airlines. And Susan, I'll turn it over to you to introduce your team. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Greatly appreciate that introduction. And thank you, everybody that is attending this event. We're very happy to be here and present a presentation all about Aviate. And have a great team here with us this evening. 3 of our former UND alumni. We have First Officer J.D. Grommel, Captain Joel Aiken, and First Officer Bill Patterson are going to be presenting some information about their experience at United Airlines, as well as what our expectations are of not only our employees, but also those individuals that may be interested in our Aviate program. We also have Sue Mcgrath, who is an excellent recruiter for us in the Aviate program. She's going to be presenting some information regarding the Aviate program as well, and information that we think will be very beneficial for you. And then with that, I think we will go ahead and kick off the presentation for today. And again, thank you much for your participation.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is, as Susan mentioned, my name is J.D. Gommel, and I am a 2004 alum with UND. So I was there from 2001 through 2004. And I've been at United now for about 6.5 years. During that time, I've had the opportunity to fly on 3 different fleets, and currently on the A320 based here in Chicago, which is our world headquarters. So tonight, we're going to give you a rundown on a couple different things. I'm basically going to talk to you about the impacts of COVID, how it's affected United as an airline, specifically overall as a business worldwide, and kind of talk you through some different things here as far as career trajectories and what you can expect going forward. So first of all, I want to talk about the airline as being an essential service. So I'm sure all of you at this point have heard of the CARES Act. So there it is right on your screen, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. What that did was it kind of kept everybody afloat here for a while. The airlines had a combination of loans and grants that were awarded to them, grants being money that doesn't have to be paid back, loans being money that's paid back in the future. So with that, it was able to basically float the airline industry through, it was October 1st, it was the agreement where nobody could do any sort of furloughs or job actions. And then after that, kind of all bets were off as far as how the airline survived. So overall, the airline is it's such a huge economic engine, and worldwide, it's 58 million jobs globally, 2.4 trillion in GDP there. And that's projected to increase, and you'll see in the slides going forward here, increasing to 105 million jobs, 6 trillion GDP in 2034. Just to put that into perspective, the US does about 21, 22 million in gross domestic product per year. So that's a lot of money that the airlines are contributing. So as the world gets smaller, it's connected through the airlines. And that's where you're going to see a lot of growth going forward, where we're all connected more through air travel and our air cargo. Next slide, please. So there you go. You have the worldwide look at our growth. And this is actually projected out through 2038. Now, Boeing puts these out every so often, and it really projects how the airlines are going to be growing worldwide. So you can see there, North America is actually the world's largest airline market, but you can see a lot of growth there in Southeast Asia. That's been happening since the late 2009, 2010 and moving forward. So there's been really explosive growth over in that part of the world, really huge surge in the folks that are in the middle class economically. This allows them to travel, and it's really opened up quite a bit in that part of the world. So also in these numbers that you see on here, towards the bottom of your screen, 804,000 new pilots. That is all encompassing. That's not just airlines. So don't let this get too narrowly focused for you where we're just talking about the airlines. So next slide, please. Now, this is a graph that should be very, very interesting to all of you. This looks like a bunch of spaghetti on your screen, but it's the graph of projected retirements for the different airlines. So obviously you see the big green line up top there, that's American. They're the world's largest airline at this time. They have the highest number of pilots. They're going to have the highest number of projected retirements. Kind of buried in the middle there is United Airlines. And one of the things you see with us is that graph goes up and right, exactly. That's where it peaks out about 2028. And we're talking, mid 700s, close to 800 pilots per year on there. Obviously the smaller airlines, the younger airlines, you see where JetBlue starts to tick up kind of later on in there. This is great news for you guys because these are huge numbers going forward here. So if we go to the next slide, please. Here's United specific. Now, we are talking 6,000 pilots in the next 10 years. Now, something I do want to point out specifically on this graph, 2020 obviously has been a very interesting year. We had voluntary separation from the airline. So early retirements were awarded to certain pilots who qualified. So you're actually going to see a big peak there, close to 1,000 pilots for 2020. And then for the next 3 or so years, it'll kind of flatten out. And then it's really going to shoot back up after those pilots, that period of retirements is over. So 50% of United pilots in the next 10 years, that's 90% of pilots in the next 20 years. Those are massive, massive numbers. And that means nothing but great seniority for those that get in at the beginning of a hiring wave. Next slide, please. So here we are. You all know about it. If you hadn't heard about it before, the airlines are cyclical. It's volatile at times. And there are periods of time where it's boom and then there's bust. And that's just part of business, but the airline world really feels that. So as you can see there, several different peaks and valleys. Personally, I was at UND in 2001, and I lived I was in 203C McVeigh Hall, if anybody's in there, my old stomping grounds. That's where I lived in 2001 when 9/11 happened. And I had no idea how it would affect my airline career. I was a brand new sophomore, and it was really scary. But I stayed doing what I was doing. I kept my eyes on the ball, and I ended up exactly where I wanted to do, or where I wanted to be. And that's something that you guys need to keep in the back of your heads. I know times are scary right now. You keep hearing these things about how this is the biggest negative effect on the airline in the history of the airlines, but just keep doing what you're doing. And as you see on the bottom there, getting hired at the beginning of a wave is extremely beneficial because that just means explosive growth in seniority for you. Next slide, please. And that brings me to the tentative agreement that we recently signed. Was it last month and a half ago? So this is the first of its kind. This really brought us, united together as a pilot group because, as you can see there, we had huge losses that just weren't sustainable. Now these numbers you see at the top of the screen, net loss 1.8 billion. That was adjusted from, I believe, 2.4 billion. That was 1 quarter of losses, which is obviously not sustainable. So huge revenue losses there. Our flights were completely empty. I was flying all the way through the beginning of COVID, all the way through the summer. And there were just periods of time where we just had like a handful of people on some of these flights. It was really eerie to be out there flying around, but things are starting to recover. And then the company and our union got together and decided that they were going to sign a new contract, which would keep all the pilots on property. So typically in these times, there's large amounts of furloughs, which means some pilots hit the street, bad job market, they have to do something else. In the meantime, this keeps every single pilot employed at United through 2021, through June of 2021. And then through that, there are tiered reductions, hourly reductions based off the seniority. So this is the first agreement of its kind. We saw some other airlines start to follow suit afterwards, but this was really what showed that we as United do stick together. We are a family and we take care of each other. So with that, next slide, please. I'm going to go ahead and turn you over to Captain Joel Aiken. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, JD. Outstanding synopsis. And, you know, just to illustrate some of the things that you were talking about, today United announced that we're going to resume our nonstop premium service to JFK. Kind of to piggyback on what JD talked about with this TA and some of the different things that are big picture in nature, is United and our Pilots Association has really had a very collaborative relationship during this time. And it's accomplished a lot of different things, from keeping people on the property, but most importantly, it's put United in a very competitive position where we're both well capitalized and we have the people that will allow us to react quickly to changes in the market, take advantage of different opportunities. And that's really where our senior leadership wants to go. They want to be able to have that flexibility, and it wouldn't have happened without a very trusting relationship between the pilots and leadership. So we're all very appreciative of that. Once again, my name is Joel Aiken. I'm a 1992 grad from UND, sat in many of Kent's classes and survived those, fortunately. So Kent, thanks for that. Mowing your lawn did work out okay, so I appreciate that. Thought that was a good move on my part. But in any case, I'm a 737 captain. I'm what they call a job share evaluator as well, which means that every other month I work in the flight training center, and I do simulator evaluation. I issue type ratings, do some other regulatory work for the FAA, and then basically do the same thing out on the line as well as a line check airman. So lots of opportunities at United, and really, really happy to be here. So what matters most when choosing a major airline? Well, you know, JD touched on many of those issues, but you know, this is a career. This is a very long-term proposition for anyone. There's very few opportunities in the airline industry, certainly none that I know of, where you could make a lateral move. So where you start with your airline, because of our seniority system, you are very much tying yourself to the fortunes of that airline. And so it's important that that relationship is something you understand going into it, and that you also understand the big picture and the nature of this career. So overall, this is what we'll talk about here. We'll talk a little bit about the type of flying, the location, and some of the things that drive our expected career advancement. So next slide, please.
Sorry.
One of the main issues that most people are looking for with an airline is obviously flying airliners and having a very interesting career. One of the major drivers for that is what your route network is, kind of what your business model is. United is a global airline with a global reach. To do that, we have a very, very large wide body fleet. So right now we have about 192 wide body aircraft. We're actually going to grow that so that when we come out of the pandemic, we're going to have about 206 wide body aircraft. The backbone of that is going to be our 787 fleet. It's a very flexible airplane. It has a very long-term growth potential. And we're really planning to be able to use that to serve a lot of very interesting and unique markets. For example, during the pandemic, we've announced 9 new markets. 2 of them are Bangalore, India, and Johannesburg, South Africa. We're able to do that because we're the only carrier who has a 787-9 with the type of engines that meets that performance capability. So by having those aircraft available, by having the flexibility to move in those markets, we're able to respond globally, and we're able to do it quickly, which is something that's really, really important right now, just because the landscape is changing so fast. One of the other, the backbone of our domestic fleet is the 737 fleet. And obviously the 737 MAX has been in the news over the last year and a half. It looks like the FAA is going to issue certifications that aircraft is going to be able to return to service here in the next 3 to 6 months. So we're starting that process. We have 150 737 MAX 9s and MAX 10s on order. That's a very flexible airplane. It's the most efficient narrow body in the sky. And again, it's an airplane that we can use to feed that international network, as well as service our domestic network in a very, very cost-effective and efficient way. Right now, we have about 350 737s in the fleet. That, just to put it in perspective, that is large. Our 737 fleet alone is larger than the entire airline, British Airways. So it's a very, very large fleet. By the time we're done growing that fleet, we'll have about 550, 560 737s in the fleet. So the 737 MAX 10 should be coming online here in the next 3 years or so, and we're going to be the North American launch customer for that. Next slide, please. For pilots, probably in addition to seniority, one of the other major factors is where am I going to fly out of? What's my life going to look like? And so, you know, for major airline, the types of hubs, the number of hubs, where they're located, the livability of those different hubs is very, very important. United has 7 main hubs that it operates out of. It has a pilot base in Cleveland that really operates out of Chicago, and it has Guam out in the North Pacific. So we have our base in Guam with about 125 pilots to our largest base in Newark with about 2,700 pilots. So, you know, a wide range in opportunities. What drives a pilot's ability to, you know, live in these different bases, commute to them, fly different equipment is, again, back to that seniority issue. So your seniority is really the driver that determines what your base equipment and seat is. But for a pilot, the most important factor, you know, when you're looking at a career, in addition to seniority, really is, well, where am I going to fly out of? Because that's going to determine everything about your life. You're looking at spending, you know, between 30 and 40 years at one company. So you want to make sure that that company has the framework and the foundation that you can grow your family's foundation and your career's foundation upon, you know, in a very meaningful way. And I think United does a great job for that. Next slide, please. So the other, you're at UND right now, so you do a lot of training. You do a lot of lessons, you do a lot of evaluations. That's not going to end. We're actually going to do more of that when you get to United. So to meet that need, we have the world's largest flight training center. It's located in Denver, Colorado. It actually is the original United Airlines flight training center. During the merger, there was a very, you know, significant process which determined that's really the best way to go. And so even though that facility, the first building dates back to 1968, we just finished construction on the G building, opened it up last February. And so what that does is that allows us to have a multi-million-dollar facility. We've upgraded it. It's state-of-the-art in every possible way. We have, by the time all of our simulator bays are filled, right now we have 36 simulators on the property. We'll have 40 by the time all the bays are filled, and we'll probably expand that. We run between 50 and 65,000 annual training events, and that would include all of our pilot events, flight attendant training. We do some of our maintenance technician work, but it's mainly pilots and flight attendants. So anyone who flies in an airplane comes through here for all their training. Each pilot will transition through the training center once every 9 months. Every fleet is on what we call a 9/18 rotation. And then we'll have probably, another 2,000 to 3,000 events annually that is related to someone changing equipment, either going from first officer to captain or first officer to larger equipment, smaller equipment, whatever it is. There's a lot of movement within the industry, again, just driven by what someone wants to have as far as a lifestyle. But what we do at the Flight Training Center is we make sure that everyone has the most modern, technologically advanced training that is available worldwide. Next slide, please. So, you know, you might be thinking, well, you know, American, United, Delta, Southwest, I mean, they all kind of do the same thing. And that's true. We do the same thing. We fly airplanes from point A to point B. We do our best to get the people there with their luggage on the same calendar day. That was a joke. I should laugh at that. However, that is in fact the basic, you know, mission of what we do. However, each airline puts their own individual stamp on it. And so at United, we have our core four, basically our service priorities. And this is what everybody in the company understands. It's something that they can really sink their teeth into and help them stay focused on what makes United United. From a flight ops perspective, we'll just look at 3 of these, then I want to talk about the 4th one independently. So safety is no question. Everything we do is, you know, designed to deliver a very, very safe product. We are incredibly safe, the most risk the riskiest move anybody does is drive to the airport. We all know that. That's what the statistics support. So we're a very, very safe airline. On the dependable and efficiency side, well, that makes sense too. And those are things which they're measurable. We can quantify them. We can go ahead. We can make spreadsheets. We can really improve and focus on those things. The most challenging piece of this is that second point, caring. And I think that's what separates United from our competitors. What caring is all about at United is caring is an opportunity for each employee, whether you're a pilot, flight attendant, CSR, someone working in a support role, both to serve their fellow United employees, but also serve in a meaningful way all of our customers. We want to make that connection. We want to build a meaningful relationship, which is built on trust. We want to own the things that we do well. We want to own the things that we need to improve on. All of those aspects, really are, pivotal to that caring point, which is really how we express our purpose for what we do. So that's the why behind what we do. What we do is we deliver a safe, defendable, and efficient product. However, what really sets us apart is that opportunity to care for people and to be a meaningful part, both of their travel experience, but of their life. Next slide, please. And I think that I'm going to transition now to our next speaker. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan.
Thanks very much, Joel. Greatly appreciate that. I'd like to talk about just a little bit about where we are with Aviate. Over the past 5 years, airlines have created alternative ways to enter their ecosystem besides what we call our traditional hiring. Applicants who apply via our traditional process, or maybe that of another airline, they normally apply directly into that airline or directly to that airline. And in our case, it's airlineapps.com. Applicants at that time are then ranked competitively by different qualifications, and those qualifications could be things such as education, GPA, maybe flight hours, types of flying, experience that you have flying, your leadership and proficiency, and a few other areas. But those are the kind of some of the major areas that we are looking for in that competitive factor. In that process, in our traditional process, we do value multi-crew jet PIC experience, and the typical number of hours for somebody that's competitive in that process is about 3,500 hours and up. But again, that's the traditional process. However, pathway programs have been created most recently, not only just by legacy and major carriers, but also by our cargo carriers as well. And I know that you've seen many of those that have been introduced over the last couple of years. What this does is it allows each airline to select candidates very early in their aviation journey, and some as early as a private pilot certification, and while in college, such as at UND. Typically, after a very thorough and what we believe is somewhat of a rigorous selection process, a conditional job offer may be offered, which could be a one-time interview for that major or legacy carrier. And if selected, then individuals follow a very defined path to our process would be to a regional or United Express carrier before transitioning on to United. And then prior to transition, the nice thing about our program is we do offer a lot of coaching and professional development during that time. So we want to make sure that those individuals are ready to transition not only to our Express environment, but also to United. There is oversight and monitoring, though, during the time that individuals are in that program, and it allows United to ensure that those individuals that are in the program are on the right path to be a pilot at United Airlines. Next slide. So this is our pathway design. So we wanted to share that with you. And so just to give you a little bit of context, this provides an entry at various points along the process, not just one. So we have an opportunity for individuals to enter our ecosystem at various points. So we recently purchased a flight academy called Westwind, and that's in Phoenix, Arizona, and soon we'll brand that the United Aviate Academy. We're really excited about that. It's an opportunity to provide that ab initio training, that zero to hero, and again, allowing those individuals very early on in their process to enter our Aviate ecosystem. We also have many partnerships with various 141 universities, UND included, as well as some flight schools, as well as some 135 partners. In the next few slides, we will share those partners with you. Also, individuals can enter Aviate through any of our partnerships that may be on into our UAX carriers. So our UAX carriers are Commute Air, Mesa, and Air Wisconsin. And as we feed you through, then this is where you would build time before you would have an opportunity to transition to United. I want you to focus though on the left-hand side of that arrow, and that's where you will see United spending a great deal of time, not only this year, but in the coming months and the coming year. This is very important to us as we build our future pipeline, because we're going to be reaching down into the middle schools, into high schools, and trying to build that interest in aviation at a much earlier phase than what has been done previously. We announced in July a partnership with EAA and their Young Eagles and Youth Aviation programs. We will be building on that. And additionally, we are going to reach out further into areas that we never have done before. It may be the Boys and Girls Club, or it may be the Girl Scouts, or different areas in flight schools that support our diversity, equality, and inclusion focus. We need to ensure that we're representing all of the communities and locations where we fly and offer a great diverse talent to United Airlines. Next slide. One opportunity that the Aviate program offers is a clear path to United. We wanted to make sure that individuals really understood how they would have that opportunity to join United. So as stated before, if you join Aviate early, you have that opportunity to be a part of our Aviate ecosystem very early on in your career, and it sets a clear path to United. That path could include support and development. We have coaches and ambassadors that would be assigned, especially the coaches, to those individuals and our participants. However, there's also a lot of work on your part. So we want to make sure that we're watching and we're monitoring to make sure that you meet those expectations and our standards. But we're going to help you get there. We will provide you the comfort in knowing that you have that opportunity to join United as you maintain those expectations as a professional pilot. Had we not had the pandemic, that path would have been far quicker than what it is today. However, do know, as we discussed earlier in previous slides, you're on the right path at the right time. You're at the right place at the right time, because recovery will happen. We do know that. And we are there with a process that will return quickly to previous levels of what we had before. Now I'd like to introduce Sue Mcgrath, who is one of our excellent Aviate recruiters, and she's going to lead you through some of our partnerships and additional information regarding Aviate.
Thank you, Susan. So I may have met many of you back in February, early in 2020, when we thought that the year had so much promise for us, and so much has changed, and yet there's still so much promise for you. First of all, you are in a very, very, very unique and fortunate position being a flight student at UND. Most of our pilots that are joining us today would have been so, would have loved to have had an opportunity to have a clear path to United and have that carved out early on in their college careers. And the fact that you have chosen UND, which is one of only 4 universities that United Airlines has chose to partner with on our Aviate initiative, you already are in a tremendous place. And as most of our pilots have shared with you, although it may seem like the timing is not right, you're absolutely in a place to be doing exactly what you need to be doing. That is learning from a premier school and building on your flight experience. Susan did mention that Aviate also has other flight school partners. I just wanted to emphasize, though, that And for anyone that's transitioning to United Airlines, having that bachelor's degree that each of you are working toward is absolutely imperative, and it's really important and necessary for the transition to United Airlines. So you are in the right place, doing the right things that's going to allow you to more quickly transition to United Airlines. So this is just a slide showing our different partners throughout the Aviate ecosystem. As we mentioned, if you apply and are successful at Aviate, at becoming an Aviate participant, then you follow along our path to work with our Part 135s or UAX partners along the way. So what is the eligibility criteria? You might have already heard some of this information, but we wanted to make sure that everyone had this. You must be a full-time student, obviously, at UND, pursuing a major that will result in eligibility for ATP or restricted ATP. You need to have, at time of an application, you need to have a minimum of a 3.0 cumulative GPA. You need to have completed at least 30 credit hours of coursework at UND. And typically that would be like toward the end of your freshman year. You need to hold a minimum of a private pilot certificate, hold a valid Class 1 or Class 2 FAA medical certificate, and be in good standing with your partner university at UND and have no documentation of violations of student code of conduct or have been subject to been the subject of any violations. So as you can see, many of our pilots would attest that almost at the end of your freshman year, if you have maintained the minimum GPA and done and accomplished your achieving your private pilot certificate, you would potentially be able to apply as early as that. Now, we recommend that individuals apply to Aviate at a time that they feel most confident. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what the benefits would be, and then in a little bit later on, we're going to talk about that interview process and what the expectations are. But as Susan mentioned, one of the key benefits of the Aviate program and becoming a participant is the coaching and development that you would be involved in as joining part of our United family through Aviate. Our Aviate program immediately connects any Aviate participant who is successful in the interview process to dedicated United pilot coaches that can help and guide you through your Aviate journey. As JD referenced, as a sophomore in college facing 9/11 and not having any idea what that might mean to your career, that would be the type of opportunity. Not only are our coaches reaching out to you on a regular cadence, but also that would be an opportunity for you to reach out and for support and direction. Our Aviate coaches can also provide career advice, answer key questions that you may have about pursuing this lifelong career as a first officer and potentially a captain at United. We also do provide coaching and development in several different areas, starting with our United culture. So as Joel mentioned, our core 4 is really important to each and every employee at United Airlines. And so you have an opportunity to learn more about that core 4 and how it transcends each of our departments. You get exposure to our United leadership model. And also, as Susan referenced, you get exposure to and you are part of our diversity and inclusion efforts. And so that's a tremendous benefit prior to even joining United Airlines. You also would get instruction in other focus areas, including key functional skills, like understanding what the pilot expectations are of a United pilot. Also having discussion with your coaches and as part of our coaching program about crew resource management, United being one of the leaders in that area, what the expectations are for customer interactions, flight hours, and such. And then lastly, the third core focus area is getting exposed to different departments at United Airlines and our infrastructure, so that at such time that you're building your flight hours and once you become eligible to transition to United Airlines, you will already have a lot of information that none of the pilots on this call today would have had prior to starting at United. So our goal is to help you prepare to understand the culture and the environment that you are starting on. We're going to talk a little bit now about that interview and preparing for the interview. Bill, would you like to take over?
Yeah, you bet. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. My name is Bill Patterson. I'm a 767, 757 first officer based in Chicago with JD, actually. And I've been at United for just a little bit over 7 years. I'd like to just briefly talk about the interview process specifically to Aviate, as we've been talking about here for the last 35 minutes or so. I'm fortunate to be one of the pilot interviewers on the Aviate interview team. And when you are selected for an interview, you're brought in person either to Denver at our flight training center or to our corporate headquarters downtown Chicago at Willis Tower. And it's a terrific experience, which I'll talk about here in just a second. But the team is pretty much what you see here today. I mean, we have a lot more recruiters and a lot more pilot interviewers, but you're teamed up with someone like Joel or myself or JD as pilots, and then working alongside of us would be someone like Sue or Susan. It's meant to be a very comfortable environment so we can learn everything about you and what you can bring to United. So kind of the 35,000 foot view of the whole interview process is that we as pilots and our pilot recruitment talent acquisition department would like to see, can you add to not only our core four, which we've talked about here today, but also can I sit next to you as a pilot on a multi-day trip? And you know, when we fly here at United, we're a global airline, and you know, we can have flights that are going all the way to South Africa, to the South Pacific, or we can be in Minneapolis or Denver or Europe. So we're flying at all different hours of the day and multiple day trips. So what we're looking for as pilots is we're looking for, is this someone who not only is going to uphold to our safety expectations, our professional expectations, but is this somebody who's going to make the workday enjoyable and the trip memorable in many ways. So when you think about when you're selected for the interview, how do you prepare for the interview? Well, we have a couple different areas here that we wanted to kind of touch on. The first one is maintain technical proficiency. And you're already doing that at North Dakota. In order to be successful, you have to study hard, you have to work on the technical skills and continue to fly. As we all know, when we take a break from flying, become a little bit rusty and it becomes a little bit more difficult, and you kind of have to repeat some items to get it back into the groove. And that's kind of the same thing here at United as well. So we want to see you to fly. We want you to be able to get out there and continue to build your flight experience. We will send you the actual guidelines as far as our expectation and what the interview will look like for the technical piece of the Aviate interview. But and all this is also geared to your experience level too. So we're not expecting you to be able to draw the diagram of a CRJ 200 pressurization system. We're looking very much at your background and experience based upon where your entry point is into Aviate. We do expect you to come in and give us a professional image. So what does that look like? We're looking for you to put on paper and onto the application your entire professional background and the experiences that you've had in life. So that means any type of work experience, any type of check ride successes. And yes, maybe if you've had some failures, we would like to know about that. And we'd like to talk about that with you. Keeping in mind that the application is a legal document and it's one that United has on file so that we can do a background check on you before we invite you to fly one of our aircrafts into the future. So taking into what a professional resume looks like, your logbooks, making sure they're legible, making sure they're accurate. These are all kind of common sense items I know that we are talking about here, but again, we're looking for somebody who can adhere to all of our training and safety parameters. So that really starts with what your image is like coming to the interview. We'd like to know your accountability. We'd like to make sure that you can complete tasks when assigned. And remembering that pretty much when you start your not only interview at Aviate and then accepted into the program, is that, as we like to say, the camera is always on. When you have the experience of being able to meet different United pilots, we're always kind of watching you and to kind of see, are you the fit that we're looking for the future? So keep in mind that just because you're not quite here yet, we're starting to build a relationship with you, and we want to see that in the interview. Of course, that comes with preparation and practice. So having a positive attitude, a professional appearance, we'd like to see in business formal when you show up with a suit and tie, and present a positive impression of who you are. You've worked very hard to get where you are, and we want to see you shine with that. Self-improvement, like you to continue to better yourself, advance where you're able to, and take on additional leadership opportunities. And that can be through your school or in your personal life outside. But we'd like to see someone that can bring additional skill set to United. In fostering relationships, like to see you reach out to mentors and coaches along the way, establish a relationship with the industry, and serve others and give back to the industry. This can be done through various charities, volunteerism. You can volunteer on numerous committees within the union structure, Women in Aviation, OBAP, et cetera. What we're trying to say is that we want to see somebody that would like to make this a better place. I think all of us, doesn't matter if you're in school or if you're here at United, all of us should aim to retire leaving the company in a better spot than when you came in. Next slide, please. So how are we successful in the process? How can you show up and be chosen as an Aviate hire here at United? Well, we've talked about the core four, and really that is something that we as employees of United Airlines, it doesn't matter if you're in talent acquisition or a 787 captain or a flight attendant mechanic, any of the various 95,000 employees that we have here at United, our expectation is the same, that you come to work with a safe, caring, dependable, and efficient attitude and adhere to all those goals. We'd like to see someone who can promote teamwork, professionalism, and maintain the operational efficiency of the company. To operate an airplane, it's very expensive. There's lots of man hours around it, from outside the aircraft to catering, to fuel, to the maintenance side of it. And especially in these times of COVID, we need to be very cognizant of trying to extract as much revenue out of each flight as we can, because that benefits us all, and not just employees here at United, but the whole industry, being able to have a stable work environment. Managing task efficiency to optimize overall performance, demonstrating self-awareness, and then sensitive to the environment around them. That kind of goes back to what I was saying just a few minutes ago in terms of operating at all different hours of the day and different theaters of the world. And it's very different. I think all the pilots here would shake their heads, yes, that it's different flying than when you're flying a 10 a.m. flight from Chicago to Denver, and it's a 2.5-hour flight, and you arrive feeling refreshed after a great night's sleep, as opposed to flying the backside of the clock from, say, Honolulu to Chicago on a red eye. And then develop CRM, crew resource management. So what is crew resource management? Well, that's kind of Joel's expertise in terms of bringing a certified pilot into our training center and teaching him the United way. As we're certified by the FAA, as we all know, our training program is certified by the FAA, and we need to work with within those confines, but we need to do it to ensure that at any condition, in any emergency situation, any type of theater that we're flying in, we go back to our training, which is crew resource management. Next slide, please. Okay. Sorry, I guess we're going to go on to Sue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you so much for that information on the interview process. And Bill and I had been doing some university interviews, Aviate interviews back in March before we were sidelined due to COVID. And so thank you, Bill, for that and for your continued involvement in our interview process. So as we were all talking, the United Aviate program really does get you flying at United in 5 steps. So just in summary, number 1, we talked about the eligibility requirements. If you meet those eligibility requirements and you feel ready to apply to Aviate, that's the second step, is applying to Aviate according to some of the guidelines that Bill shared, making sure that your resume and your logbook and everything is complete and you've answered all the questions successfully along the way, and coming in and having a successful interview. There are some students that have already had the opportunity to interview at Aviate prior to COVID starting. And so you'll hopefully hear that that experience is one, as Bill said, that we try to make as comfortable as possible, but we really do expect that you'll come prepared to share your experiences, both work, professional experiences, and flying experience. Once you are accepted into the Aviate program, then you do what you're doing now and that you're going to continue to be doing over your career, and that is building those flight hours. We talked about the fact that that would happen within our ecosystem. Right now, as our part of our UND partnership, many students will end up instructing at UND and building their flight hours there. Eventually moving into flying with one of our United Express partners. And then once based on eligibility and met all of the requirements, transitioning to United as a first officer. And that is one point that I also wanted to make sure we highlighted. When we talked about the coaching and the development that happens with being a part of Aviate, another key benefit, in addition to the fact that that would be your last interview here at United if successful, is that you would be assigned what we call a FIFO number, first in, first out. That number then, once you are successful in the program, stays with you while you're building those flight hours and building up to the point that you get to transition to United Airlines. And as many of our pilots have highlighted, that type of seniority before even joining the airlines is really important, as it helps establish what your class start date might be. Your seniority from that point, once you join United Airlines, is a separate seniority. And a lot of our speakers today also spoke about our culture at United. And I just wanted, in closing, I wanted to make sure that we highlighted a little bit more about that. Down on the bottom here, you'll see that we would have never anticipated, but on March 1st of this year, many of us, over 100 United employees, jumped into Lake Michigan. March 1st, it's about as cold as it is up in North Dakota, and we jumped in to benefit the Special Olympics. We do a lot with our communities and with different charities. We have a lot of teams to be a part of. Just like when you're in the university and there are clubs that you can be a part of, whether it be flight related or not. At United Airlines, in our family, we have the opportunity to create and belong to many, many different types of groups. We have different groups based on what your particular interests might be. And so that's just a real strong point that I wanted to highlight as well. And being a part of Aviate allows you some insight to what our culture is internally. Also, the environment matters. So we know that many students and many college students in particular are really focused on the future and our environment. And United is the first and only US airline that set a greenhouse gas emissions reduction goal of reducing gas emissions by 50% by 2050. And that is an initiative we take very seriously that I thought might be of interest to many of you. So again, we have a culture of caring here at United Airlines. That's why many of us have come together tonight to talk with you. Our shared purpose is really connecting people and uniting the world. We wish we could be on campus with you as we have been in the past, and we know we will be in the future, but we wanted to make sure that we connected with you in this opportunity that was given to us by UND. We know that the moments we share with one another, with our customers, our colleagues, make United a very special place to work and a great place to fly together. So I just want to thank all of you. This is an open door. This is a door that you have the opportunity to step through. And just by participating and watching this presentation, you hopefully now have more information than you had previously regarding our partnership with UND and United's commitment to growing our pilot pipeline for the future. We are open to any questions that you might have. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A section and we will try to answer it live. For those of you that may need to be signing off, we also listed here, and I will right now put in the Q&A section, in the chat section, our website, as well as our email address if you have any questions as a follow-up to this presentation. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, wear your masks. So we're going to turn it over now for some questions.
Thank you guys so much. That was a great presentation and a great update. There were some great questions that are coming in the Q&A, and I know Susan, you did a great job answering them typing, but maybe we can elaborate a little bit live. So I think one of them was talking about the timing of the application. Is it best to apply earlier or after you have more experience? What advice would you have for the students?
Sue, do you want to take that, or I can take it as well?
You know what, Susan, I'm sorry. I was just starting to put the email address in the chat for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Beth, can you repeat that?
How to do with the timing of applying. Should they apply early as students, or should they wait till they have more experience? What is your advice on that?
Okay, well, as we mentioned, you are eligible to start as early as once you've achieved your private pilot certificate and all of the other eligibility requirements that we presented. It is important that you know yourself and you know what your maturity and readiness level is for an interview. Although we've done everything we can, including having standards meetings with over 100 pilots to prepare our pilots and our recruiters for these interviews and to make sure that they are tailored specifically to the entry point that you apply to. It is still a personal decision. So as Susan presented in one of the slides, there are many entry points to joining Aviate. The key benefit that I mentioned at the end of the presentation, which is the sooner that you apply to Aviate, interview, and are accepted, the sooner you're able to start taking advantage of our coaching, and the sooner that you have that FIFO number that will be considered as you once you become ready to transition to United.
Thanks. Another question asked about the experience to move from your United Express partner to United Airlines. What are the minimums, knowing that it's probably industry qualifications and competition?
Susan, will you take that?
Yes, sure. The minimum opportunity to transition from a UAX partner to United, we ask that you spend about 2 years there, or at least 2 years flying for that express partner. And that's 24 months, and then also 2,000 hours. So the transition minimums are 2,000 hours and 24 months. And that's the minimum.
Thanks. Another great question. How does the process work as far as the interviews? Do they travel to you for the interviews, or would you come to UND for that process?
At this time, we have talked about possibly going on campus, but the way that we've set it up and the training that we have, all of our pilots and our recruiters are based, as Bill mentioned, at our 2 locations in Chicago, at our corporate headquarters, as well as in Denver at our flight training center. Moving forward, it's likely that we'll try to conduct more and more of our interviews at the flight training center, because we've received tremendous feedback from applicants about the experience that they're able to have by coming out and interviewing and seeing what our flight training center is all about.
I know I'm looking forward to traveling again and visiting your new flight training center. It sounds amazing.
Love to have you. We've added a lot of sims in the last year.
Good. We'll have to have another alumni event there, Joel. Another question came in about where could they go to subscribe to get more up-to-date information about the Aviate program?
Okay, I just actually, and I apologize, that's what I was trying to put into the Q&A section, into the chat box, is all of the information is at www.unitedaviate.com. And my strongest recommendation and my encouragement would be on our website. There are several different places that you can subscribe by adding your email, whether it's your UND email or a personal email. You could subscribe to our website so that when we do have updates, which we are in the process of announcing some updates in the next couple of months, that you would automatically receive those updates. And so you can visit our website, but you also can sign up and subscribe to get updates that are sent out to any of our subscribers.
Good. I know you guys also have some new social media channels as well. I started following. We've got about 5 more minutes. So if you have questions for any of the pilots as well about their jobs, their careers, feel free to type them into the Q&A feature. So a question came in, if someone transfers into the University of North Dakota with some college already under their belt, should they apply as soon as they get their private pilot's degree? So they say they come in as a junior and then they start their flight training a little bit later. What would be your advice?
You know what, I don't have a specific answer, but we'll be sure to get back to that individual, Beth, if we can get back to that individual.
Sure. So I've got some questions for the alums. So Joel, what's one of your favorite memories at UND?
So, honestly, I had an amazing experience at UND. I never visited there. I got off the airplane. I went to Smith Hall, called my dad about a week later and said, Dad, I may have made a mistake. And he said, well, just stick it out for a semester and we'll see how it goes. And honestly, from that point on, what could have been a mistake turned out to be absolutely something that I was able to build the rest of my professional career on. My favorite memory there is probably getting my type rating and the citation from John Odegaard. That'll be a memorable experience and one for a lot of reasons, but that probably tops the list.
Great. So some questions are coming in for you guys. So what is the transition like from first officer to captain, and how long into your career does that typically happen?
Captain, do you want to take that?
Sure. Let's see here. There we go. All right. Yes, absolutely. So again, that really depends upon this whole issue of seniority we're talking about. So, when you get hired, and Sue and Susan both talked about it as well. And, it's not something to get, too wrapped up about, because when it happens, it happens. You can't really do a whole lot about it other than, when you apply and preparing and everything. But the seniority number that I'll have my entire career. I can't really do anything about it. There's no way to really change that number. Same with JD, the same with Bill. Everyone is, I would just liken it to, being in a pipeline, and as that pipeline moves, and it's kind of your own internal supply and demand model. As we need more captains, if your seniority is such that you can, what we call, hold that particular captain position, then that's something that you can bid for through our vacancy bidding process, and then you're awarded that, and you go to training. Now, the big determining factor here, once you get in that pipeline, is what you want your life to look at. So being a senior first officer on a wide body, where you live in base, fly a great schedule, and JD and Bill, they're both flying those airplanes. I mean, they could determine that if the airplane is flying to their favorite destination in Europe or Hawaii or South America, they could really do whatever routes they wanted to based on how senior they were. However, if you're going to go to a position where your seniority doesn't necessarily have that same amount of leverage, so to speak, then you could be a junior captain in, say, San Francisco, where you're commuting to San Francisco and you're being on reserve. So it really just depends on kind of your seniority relative position. That changes. It's generally speaking always going to be a forward progression. But to Bill's point, I think JD touched on it too. You keep your eye on the ball. You don't lose focus. You get in the game and you keep playing until you're at the end of your career, and then you look back and you'll know what your career was like on maybe your retirement flight. But before then, really, it all is so dependent upon your seniority, your attitude, how you view what's important to you. And that's really the greatest thing about this career is it allows you so much autonomy within your career to make it serve your needs, both professionally and personally. JD, Bill, anything to add on that?
No, I just real quick on that, and I think Joel, you hit it really well, is that, kind of before the whole COVID started with the environment here, our upgrade time to captain had reduced to about almost 3 years of seniority to be able to hold captain, which is pretty phenomenal if you think about that. And then we had, as recent as the beginning of this year, we had pilots that had less than 1 year of service with the company flying the 787 and the 777 out of predominantly San Francisco. Again, that's pretty unique. Both JD and myself could hold captain with the amount of time that we've been here at United, but not where we are currently based, which is Chicago. Both Chicago, Denver, and Houston trend much more senior than our bases that are on the coast. And so that's the other nice part, is that you can kind of choose as a pilot, not only what airplane you want to fly, again, going back to what Joel said on your seniority number, but also based upon, when you're ready for the opportunity. And I think both JD and I would jump at the captain opportunity in Chicago when it presents itself.
So great. I do think our time is about up, but one last question came in that I think would be a great way to end it. As a pilot or a pilot recruiter, what are the one or two main most rewarding aspects about your career choice? So I'm not sure, JD, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah. In my career was when I transitioned over to the 7576 fleet, and I strapped on a 767 for the first time going to Munich. That was pretty darn rewarding. I mean, I had several pinch myself moments, and ironically enough, we had some maintenance. I had some extra time at the gate, so I was a nerd, and I was taking pictures of myself in front of the gate with the crew. But that was really, really amazing. It still kind of gives me chills thinking about this is really happening. Other times are flying with my parents. First time I ever had my dad in the plane with me, I had him sitting in 1B, so he could see me right behind me back there. And I got some good pictures with him, and I've flown my mom several times, took her to London one time, and she was sitting in the first class pod just next to our crew rest seat. So that was pretty cool. So definitely the most rewarding points of my career. And you can't trade that for anything.
Neat. Bill?
Did you say
I guess I'll take a little bit different approach on that, Beth. I think, the seizing of opportunities is what's cool. And I think that starts at North Dakota. JD hit on 2001 and what that meant to him. I was fortunate enough to be able to take advantage of an internship that UND had directly with a regional airline that unfortunately isn't here anymore, but that really helped me stay focused on moving forward when the industry wasn't such a good place to be. And, then opportunity again, being able to be at United, and aside from flying airplanes, there's some, different things that you can do, which is fun. And whether it be pilot recruitment, I've had some opportunities to work in our flight operations department down in Chicago. And as JD said, the flying opportunities is great too. From going to Europe to Hawaii, it's always fun to leave Chicago when the weather is dreary and cold, and land in Maui for 24 hours and head out to the beach. So I think keep in mind as you're moving forward in your personal journey and career is look for those opportunities and thrive off of them.
Sue.
Thanks, Beth. For me, number one, it's having the opportunity to work with all of our pilots. The time that they give to this, their commitment to the next generation of pilots is just incredible. And so thank you all who joined me today in this presentation, for all of your heart and for UND. And I love that opportunity. I also love how dynamic and the industry is constantly changing, as we saw this year. And just this year, just in the last couple of months, I've had the opportunity to do some things and fill some voids on the team that needed to be filled, and probably interviewing pilots and interviewing and hearing about their flight experiences is just amazing.
Great. Susan, anything to add?
I think for me, it's building the future pilot workforce. Actually, it's I always say, where go the pilots, so goes United. And we've had a wonderful opportunity to bring some exceptional individuals and welcome them to United. And I think that begins with you at UND. And I know that Kent had mentioned our internship program. And there are many individuals that I have known as interns that I've in turn I've been able to interview as a pilot and make job offers for a pilot at United. And the same goes with Aviate. So I've had that opportunity as well. And so that's what's exciting for me, and so rewarding, and the opportunities that are afforded to so many of you. So that's what I would say, Beth.
And last but not least, Joel.
So you know, it's a long list. I would say there's a couple things that stand out. Probably the most, from a technical standpoint, the most rewarding opportunity that I've had is being in the line check airman, simulator evaluation, check pilot exam, and all those different things I get to do. This is an unusual career because you're constantly being evaluated, and you're evaluated by your peers. And so there are a few of us which have that opportunity to serve our fellow pilots in just a very, very unique way. And I think both the honor of serving in that role, in that capacity, being able to work with, you know, really my peers like that, it's a very rare opportunity, and it's something I take very seriously. I know everybody that I work with in that capacity does, but you know, it is really an incredibly rewarding opportunity. It's an incredibly rewarding role. At the end of the day, flying airplanes is it's more about the laws of, or it's more than the laws of physics and working for a great company and all these different things. I mean, it is a really, it's an inspirational experience, and it's something that I feel that every time I fly, it's never diminished. It's only become stronger. And I think all of us will agree that right up to our retirement flight, we will always look out the front of a jet, whether it's a Boeing or Airbus or some other product, and be amazed and really humbled by that experience and by being able to do that.
Well, thank all of you for sharing your passion for not only your career, but your airline. I know these days we need that type of reminder. So again, thank you so much for zooming in with us this evening and updating us on the Aviate program and United in general. It's greatly appreciated. I know we're also very much looking forward to when you can visit campus again, maybe in a February career fair. I know everybody loves coming to North Dakota in February, and we enjoy hosting all of you in February as well. So Kent, any final words?
Just thanks to United. Great presentation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the valuable partnership that you have with us. It's wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kent.
Have a great night. Thanks.
Stay safe.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.